Delighted to welcome to the show this morning the current Cork senior footballer, Sean Powter. Morning, Sean.
Morning, how are you?
Keeping well, Sean, keeping well. We decided to get you on, of course, to talk about your own county in Cork, and we'll get to them in a bit. But Kerry Tyrone this weekend, myself and Tommy were chatting about the rivalry between the two over the years, and what a game to look forward to. But what's the vibe down there? I know, yourselves having played Kerry this year, they're a different animal this year, it has to be said.
Yeah, compared to last year now, where we beat them down the park, we kind of thought going into Killarney we had another shot at them, but they blew us away after 15 minutes. They knew everything we wanted to do, and they just, as you said, they're at a different level this year. But I think Tyrone, go on, sorry.
No, fire away. I'm just going to say, I guess. What's changed between that Kerry team last year and this year? Have they developed? Have they improved? They've clearly come on in leaps and bounds. But is there anything tangible that you've noticed or picked up on?
I think they're playing with 6 out now forwards, because I remember last year before the game in the park, they brought off Stephen O'Brien and put on Brian Begley, and that was the kind of 1-0 to us. They kind of fear us here, but now they're playing with 6 out now forwards, and you need 6 out and out defenders to mark them, and there's a lot of teams that don't have the quality of defenders as to match the quality of forwards they have.
Did you feel, Sean, last November, say, when you were building up to that game, there was so much talk about Kerry again? Did you feel like the way that Kerry set up, that they may have had an eye on Dublin that day?
Yeah, and that was in the back of our minds. They're not even thinking about us, and all the papers were Kerry Dublin, and they were just kind of skipping over us, and that was a kind of motivation, and we used it as motivation. But I think this year they were like, no, we're focused on Cork now, and we'll get over Cork and focus on the next team after that. And I think they did that very well, to be fair to them.
Yeah, one of the things we kind of spoke about earlier in the year was it looked like Kerry were playing with a bit of anger this year. You obviously had that unbelievable win. It really obviously stung them as a team. We know when we look at David Clifford and Sean O'Shea that they are going to be two of the most important players over the next decade. And I suppose in Kerry they're probably looking at Cork and they're saying that you're on the rise as well, but it just hasn't happened yet at senior level. You've had a couple of big results over the last couple of years, and then an underage level you're seeing it coming, but it just hasn't come to fruition yet at senior level. Kerry this year looked like they were angry, and I think what you're saying there about the 6 forwards, that was a major thing for them this year. Getting Paul Ganey out to wing forward and moving the way he's going, and the addition of Paddy Clifford. When you were in that defence a couple of weeks ago in Killarney, what felt different about playing that 6 up front? Did it just feel like it was coming at you from all angles?
Yeah, literally, even Begley scored, I think Begley scored 1-2 or something, and Thomas Sullivan got 2 points. When your defenders are doing that, there's not much. You try and mark the forward, but if they're running up the pitch, you have to go and mark the danger as well. So you have to leave Sean O'Shea a couple of times, and then he just clips over points. But I think one of the main differences was they went after us rather than they sat back. I remember, in this game, I attacked once and I got turned over, and Sean O'Shea had the ball in the back of the net. Well, if that was November in the park, he tracked me back the whole pitch. So I feel like they were given permission to not track back and get us in the counter attack, and they did that to us.
That's interesting. What worked that November? Because it's obviously a different Kerry team from what we're seeing, but I would also make the argument that Kerry haven't fully been tested yet. They were gunning for Cork. It was clear. Against Tipperary played quite defensively, and once Gavin White broke the cover and set up Clifford for that goal, it seemed like Tip were broken a wee bit. With Clare actually kept them to a decent level for about 45-50 minutes. They just couldn't get the scores on the board to do the damage. So it doesn't feel like Kerry have faced a huge challenge so far this year. What worked in 2020? To my own untrained eye, it looked like your own direct running and your own wing backs and the kind of surging runs from midfield is what caused the damage.
Yeah, we were told to run at them, because when you run at them, they're not as strong as other defences. But the thing with us, we couldn't get the ball away from the kickouts because they had such a high press in the kickouts. They put 4 in the full forward line, 4 in the half back line, and a half forward line as well, and we just couldn't get the ball out. So they were just suffocating us. And any time we did get the ball, we were just surrounded by Kerry men. But Niall Morgan's a different kettle of fish, so I wonder will they be as aggressive at the weekend with him.
Shane, I don't know if you heard Rory Beggan during the week, but the conversation we got Beggan on earlier in the week, just to kind of talk about the Morgan factor and what he can bring to it. Shane, you'd have obviously seen Morgan and Beggan up against each other in that Ulster final in Croke Park. Like, that was incredible to watch. So I'd say Niall Morgan is going to have a big impact in this game.
Would you be along those lines, Sean? Like, I 100%, Tommy. Like, it was actually terrifying to watch. I don't know how you feel as a defender. How you would feel as a defender, Sean, like when your goalkeeper does that. Is that just the way Gaelic football is headed? Is that just the way we are at the moment? That
I don't think it's a Micheál Martin's locker, is it?
No, I don't think Micheál will be up tackling, turning over balls, but it does look like it's kind of leaning towards that way, adding a kind of extra player. But I played with Niall Morgan with the international rules, and he is a top class goalie. Like, so I'm kind of looking forward to see how Kerry will try and go after him, or how he will go after Kerry. Yeah,
the thing is, though, Morgan has that league game possibly in his head. Like, he didn't have his greatest day that day, and I know he probably got a bit of a trimming afterwards with Logan Adura. I think he spoke about that. There was words, but like, he's going to have to take a chance this weekend. Like, that's the thing with Tyrone. They can't just sit back defensively. You boys took a chance, and I think you probably had a chip on your shoulder in 2020. What do you think Tyrone can do this weekend? That let's take the game on face value. It's hard to know how much COVID has impacted the squad and what sort of a team they're going to have. But if you were taking this game on face value, how would you get Tyrone set up?
I think one of the main things is you have to follow Paddy Clifford around the place, like, because he's kind of the link between defence and attack for them. And like, I think Paddy's given Shawnee and David Clifford the license to stay up top and link the play between the two boys. So I'd have to, like, if I was their manager now, I'd just tag Paddy Clifford wherever he goes, and just like, don't let them get 2 or 3 points ahead, because that's where they'll kill you. Like, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah. No, I felt like that. I heard a remark with Colin Collins say that Paddy Clifford has the ball in his hands so quickly that it shouldn't even count as a possession. It's in his hands and it's gone. But I actually think Clifford hasn't fully been tested yet at inter-county level. Like, I think you're right. I presume when you boys are setting up, there's such a job in, okay, who's taking David Clifford? Who's taking Sean O'Shea? That, when they have their 6 forwards out there, it's like, when you get down to tagging Paddy Clifford, it's maybe just a little bit further. But I suppose everyone will have learned their lesson by this stage. So Tyrone will be ready to go on that. How about the half-back line that Kerry have set up with this year? Can they be got at in defence? Like, Tyrone, we know that Tyrone have the right profile of player for counter-attacking football. They have the likes of Sludden, Myler, McGeary, McKernan, boys who can get deep and break with the ball. Is that some way, like, that would have been similar to yourselves? You would have had a lot of legs in midfield and the half-back line. Is that something that Tyrone can use?
Yeah, like, one of the main weaknesses in Kerry is when you run at them, but their strength is when they turn you over. They just go, like, and you saw that with Begley's goal and a couple of Thomas Sullivan's points. When they turn you over, they just run at you. But like, we got most of our joy in 2020 when we just ran straight at them and said, man on man, let's have a crack here. And I think Tyrone will have to do the same at the weekend. And like, they have the players. They have McKenna, McShane, like, and Matty Donnelly, like, they're top inter-county players. Like,
you'd have played international rules with McKenna as well. What do you make of him as a footballer? Where would you think he should play? Because he's obviously a box office footballer. He's had big moments this year, but like, it's hard to know what his actual role should be.
In the international rules, he was playing half back and he dominated half back. So if I was putting him, I'd play him half back and just leave him run up and down the pitch, because he's a pure out and out athlete. Like,
the something just to pick up on Tommy was talking about there in terms of man marking, and it kind of struck me after Tommy spoke to Stephen Cohen in advance of this All Ireland final for Mayo, and like, the issue of man marking and picking up a player at the start of the game. Like, when you were playing Kerry earlier this year, Sean, and when these Tyrone players line up to play Kerry, like, Stephen Cohen spoke about the fact that the nature of championship football is that you might have an idea of who you're marking at the start of the match, but over the course of that 70, 80 minutes, you're essentially marking 4 or 5, perhaps even 6 different players. Like, did you find that again when you were playing against Kerry, for example, that you might have gone into the game with the idea of man marking a particular player and it just did not work out that way?
Yeah, like, he's bang on there, like, because with Kerry, their movement is just ridiculous. So you're trying to, like, minimize the work you're doing while trying to having a bit of energy to go forward. So we'd be switching the whole time. But it's extremely difficult when the movement is top class, like which Kerry's movement is. But like as Stephen said, it's you go in marking, say, Sean O'Shea, but you could end up marking Paddy Clifford for 10 minutes, then going on to David Clifford for 5 minutes. It's just, it is class to test yourself against the best, but it's also difficult to concentrate on who's on who and stuff.
I think when you...
It sounds terrible, though, marking those three lads across an afternoon.
Yeah.
Shane, just what we were saying earlier on about, Sean, we were talking about Tyrone-Kerry rivalry of the noughties earlier, and we were talking about, I suppose, Andy Moran actually made the point, we're going to play the clip a little later, that Tyrone's success in the noughties, people kind of mistake it that it was built on defence. Yes, they were ferocious tacklers. Yes, they hit you harder, and they probably, the cornerbacks and the fullbacks probably treated you a little differently or harsher than anyone else. But they were built on attackers. They were built on Canavan, Muggsy, Stephen O'Neill, Brian Dooher, Brian McGuigan, Ryan Mellon, Jared Cavlin, like Sean Kavanagh. Do you know what I mean? Like they were always built on exceptional attackers. And when you name out that Tyrone attack, and I know I named maybe 8 or 9 players there's a real variety in the type of forwards. Maybe the one thing they're missing was a Donaghy or a Tommy Welch, but like they had it everywhere else. They can mix it up. Like with Brian McGuigan, you had such, vision. With Muggsy and Canavan, such instinct inside. Stephen O'Neill could score from anywhere. That Kerry front 6 has a shocking amount of variety as well. And then if you add to it, who are the next men in? Tommy Welch is coming off the bench. Killian Spillane is coming off the bench. When you're, as Shane was asking the question there about changing markers, the different prospects and testing yourself, getting right for that as a defender must be tough. Like, I know I could have Paddy in my area for 10 minutes. I could have Sean O'Shea. How are you getting yourself right for that? How are you getting yourself in the mentality to be able to do that?
It is difficult, but you have to kind of, the night before, I'd always visualise marking the players who I know I'm going to mark, and potentially, I know I could mark Paddy Clifford, so I visualise for 5 or 6 minutes tackling him and that kind of stuff. But I don't think you can prepare because you don't know what's going to happen in Championship football. Like Spillane was in after 15 minutes against us.
Yeah.
And we were expecting him 20 minutes to go, as he did in all the other games. But it is difficult, but I think that's one of the main challenges of intercounty football, is kind of getting your head right to accept anything that's going to be thrown at you.
100%.
The unpredictability of championship football. Like, if we were to try and make an argument for Tyrone to win this game, Sean, or even for Kerry to lose it, whichever way you want to put it, like, I saw Martin Breheny in the Irish Independent this week kind of asking the question, are this Kerry team overrated? It's a fortnight later than scheduled for Kerry. They haven't had a game for 5 weeks. And even then, with all respect, the Munster final wasn't the push that maybe, for example, the Dubs might give them. Could Kerry come in cold? Like, is there any argument you can make that maybe Kerry will be finding it difficult to get over the line on Saturday?
I'd love to say they will find it difficult, but I just don't see it happening. I think we caught them cold in 2020, and I don't think they'll be caught cold again. But I do think if Tyrone get their kick-out press or their kickouts right, there's a lot of joy in behind the defence when you do get it away, because they left just Brian Hurley and Michael Hurley unmarked when we were taking their kickouts. So I feel if they do the same with Tyrone will just bomb it into the lads inside.
And the two lads made hay in that first 15 minutes, Sean. You were right in that game. Yeah,
I think Hurley scored 1, 2 or 3 in the first 15, 20 minutes, but then they kind of caught on and they started winning breaks and stuff. But if Tyrone get their kickouts right, I feel like there's a game on here.
It's incredible when you think that it's well over 10 years. Sorry, Shane, well over 10 years since Cork won their last All Ireland football title. I know shortly after that, Aidan Walsh was on a very strong team that had done well at under 21 level. But over the last couple of years, Sean, there was the under 20 title in 2019. They obviously got the under 20 final last year as well in 2020 that they lost to Kerry. But this year, in terms of the hurling and the football, there was a clean sweep at minor level, and there's been real success there at under 17 level over the last couple of years. What's it like being a part of an intercounty team when there's that sort of transition going on, that that there's footballers coming through? There might be some other lads that are maybe stepping away, but it's quite a young profile of a team there in Cork at the minute, and you're trying something different. Is it exciting to be a part of something like that?
Yeah, like when I joined the panel, there was the likes of Donnacha O'Connor, Daniel Goulding. So like when you're looking up to those kind of players, you dream of playing with them. Like, and when you are eventually there, it's class. But I don't think the players nowadays have the kind of same like role models, I'd say. So I feel like now I'd be someone's role models, as say. So like it is exciting to kind of help young fellas in, and I do feel like there is serious potential in Cork football, and I feel like in the next coming years we can go places. Like,
what have you found is the important thing? Like, because we're seeing it with Offaly now with their young lads, they're going to be trying to bring through that under-20 team. I'm a Meath man. I don't know if I haven't mentioned it today so far, but like in Meath, there's that. You know, they've been asleep at the wheel for 10, 12 years, you could say, 15 years, 20 years, we'll say. How do you bridge it? How do you add those 3 or 4 players in? What would you say is the key thing for young players coming into a squad, or even for a management team to bring players in? What's the most important thing to get young lads in?
I think it's just belief as well. There seems to be sometimes a lack of belief with Cork football. When we're going up against the likes of Dublin, Kerry, some people just don't believe we should be there. While I personally believe every game we go into, we will win. And I know I put it out in the Examiner the week before the Kerry game.
Yeah,
I genuinely believe we will win. And I got a lot of stick for that after, to be fair.
Did you?
Yeah. But like if I went into a game believing I was going to lose, I wouldn't have bothered. Like.
And when you're getting sick, I presume that's from outside the camp. It's not necessarily.
Oh yeah, not inside the camp. No.
Yeah, when you're trying to foster then that, like, I suppose that mentality, like, Cork shouldn't be looking at that game as if they're, I suppose, a smaller country club going up against the big town club or something like that. How are you able to generate that, inspire that sort of reaction with teammates and I suppose the rest of it's not even the teammates I suppose you're trying to inspire. It's nearly the Cork public you're trying to inspire, because if you look at a county like Tyrone, they're probably being written off all around this week, but you just know that Tyrone don't care, and Tyrone will use that in a positive way. Like, Cork can look at the last couple of years of underage success and fully believe that there's something on the horizon here.
Yeah, like there is, like player like Brian Hartnett now, Cathal O'Mahony, they've all won under 20 All Irelands, and hopefully now we'll have the likes of Jack Callahan, Brian Hayes, David Buckley, like that kind of caliber players stepping up in the next, hopefully next year or the year after. So like there is the talent there. It's just finally bring them all together and kind of fighting for one cause, which is Cork football. Like.
Yeah, I think one of the things that stuck with me after the Dublin Mayo game was Andy Moran pointed out the young lads that were left on the pitch at the end of the game. They had beaten Dublin in a 2016 under-21 All-Ireland final, and Andy was saying you just knew that the likes of Jim O'Connor was sizing up someone like Tom Lahiff and going, I've beaten this guy before. I know I have. Stephen Cohen, Conor O'Shea, Conor Loftus, they'd beaten them before. So I think if those Cork lads come through and they have it in their bones that they've beaten Kerry, there'll be no fear. So look, best of luck with that over the next couple of years, and thanks for joining us this morning, Sean.
Thanks very much.
Great stuff. Yeah, thanks a million, Sean. Really good insight there from Sean Powter, the current Cork senior inter-county footballer. Really, really good stuff. OTB AM, of course, brought to you by Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette. Put your best face forward with their new and improved razors.